Nick Walker just won the 2026 Tampa Pro, bringing his most complete package of all time, and in my opinion, as a huge Nick Walker fan, the best package of any bodybuilder this year. But in this video, we're going to put that to the test against what I believe was the best physique of 2026 before Tampa, which has to be Andrew jacked at either the Arnold Classic Ohio or the Arnold Classic UK. People may have different opinions on which version was better, but personally I think the Arnold UK package was just a bit more impressive. So today we're comparing Andrew jacked at the 2026 Arnold Classic UK against Nick Walker at the 2026 Tampa Pro to determine the best physique of 2026 so far. Front double biceps, and you could look at this pose in a lot of different ways. But I have to admit, it's hard to make any case for Nick Walker here. Andrew jacked is simply built for this pose. He's got the frame, the proportions, the small waist, and even the arms themselves. I know there's been a lot of speculation about Andrew's arms over the years, but if we're talking about that subject, I've seen a lot worse. Whatever Andrew did, he can absolutely go head to head against Nick Walker, who is a genetic freak when it comes to arm development. Now, where Nick is clearly better is conditioning and overall polish, but make no mistake about it, this pose goes to Andrew. Like I said, he was built for this pose just like Nick was built for other poses. And don't make the mistake of deciding the winner based only on the front double biceps or maybe even the back double biceps, as many people tend to do nowadays. Last time I checked, every mandatory pose counts exactly the same. And for now, Andrew has won the first one. Front lat spread is next, and this second front pose may be even more one-sided than the previous one. The front poses, and particularly the front lat spread, are all about overall structure. And Andrew has everything you want for this pose. The taller frame, wider clavicles, smaller waist, longer limbs, shorter torso and better lat flare. Nick, on the other hand, is pretty much at the opposite end of the spectrum, with a blockier waist, a longer torso, shorter limbs, and overall narrower clavicles. Again, Nick looks more polished, which will definitely become an advantage in poses where structure plays a smaller role, but when it comes to the front poses, Nick is simply a victim of the Mona Lisa. But in all fairness, Andrew is probably beating everyone in the open division today in these first two poses. In Nick's defense, the fact that he finally has his midsection under near perfect control in Tampa makes the gap between him and Andrew noticeably smaller in the front poses, and in the grand scheme of the 8 mandatory poses, that could end up making a huge difference. So for now, it's Andrew 2, Nick 0. Side chest. And from the side, Nick has the advantage. He's more compact, he's blasting full, and he's in better shape. Now, I know a lot of people would still prefer Andrew. He's more dominant in terms of overall stature, and if you want to focus strictly on the chest itself, then Andrew definitely has the advantage. However, when it comes to muscle quality and roundness, the triceps, the forearms, Nick starts taking over. And then we get to the shoulders. Andrew's shoulders do seem freakier, but there's something a bit fishy there. Maybe shoulders aren't supposed to look that pointy, or maybe I'm just looking for reasons to give Nick the pose. Let me know how you guys would judge that aspect. Now, continuing with the lower body, Nick is simply more dominant. He's got the better hamstring drop, more overall size, and better detail. His execution is also top-notch. Exactly what you want to see in a side chest, while Andrew still looks just a little uncomfortable in this pose. In the end, this pose is definitely much closer than the first two, but I would still give the nod to the mutant. Back double biceps is next, and this pose is actually a bit closer than people might expect. But one thing is for sure, Nick has become the ruler of the back poses in the open division today. Only the haters won't admit that. He's got one of the best backs in the business, but everything else from the rear is absolutely elite. The arms, the shoulders, and especially that lower body are on a level beyond almost anything we see on stage today. That's exactly why Nick wins this pose against Andrew, no doubt about it. However, there is one argument that die-hard Mona Lisa fans could make, and that's the actual back itself. I'm not necessarily saying Andrew has the better back, but I do think his back has more depth and slightly better muscle bellies. Nick's back, as wide and complete as it is, can still look a little flatter compared to guys like Andrew jacked or Derek Lunsford, for example. Anyway, when you look at the complete pose, the back double biceps goes to Nick Walker. That makes the score 2 for Andrew and 2 for Nick. I would still have Andrew slightly ahead overall at this point, simply because his victories in the front poses were a bit more dominant. Back lat spread is next, and yes, Nick is winning half of the pose with the lower body, as we've already established. Those hamstrings are some of the best of all time, and he's also got incredible glutes and calves, making for one of the most complete lower bodies in the open division today. However, when it comes to the actual back, Andrew does look more impressive. His lats flare wider, he's got better detail throughout the back, and overall it has a more three-dimensional look. On the other hand, Nick's back looks bigger overall. The one thing I really don't like about Andrew in this pose is the shoulders. Now, I'm not going to turn this video into a rant about speculation, but sometimes images speak louder than words, and those rear delts look more than a little suspicious. But regardless of that, I still think Nick's overall back shot is the more complete one and deserves the point. So the score is now 3-2 for the mutant. Side triceps is next, and there are people who criticize Andrew's side triceps, while others believe it's actually the best side triceps in the world. What I can say is that this pose has definitely improved over the years, and he's got all the tools to make it look even better. But looking at Nick, we can clearly see what this pose is all about. First of all, Nick absolutely nails the execution once again. He's definitely the better poser of the two. Then, when it comes to the triceps itself, Nick's is simply thicker and bigger overall, and that should still count for something in a triceps pose. The lower body obviously goes to Nick Walker as well. His side leg is one of the best in the world. But the most interesting part is the midsection. Nick's midsection actually looks better than Andrew's in this pose. Yes, you heard that right. It's more defined, and from this angle it's also incredibly tight. Overall, I don't think there should be much debate about who's winning this one. Nick scores his fourth pose while Andrew remains on 2. Abs and thighs is next, and of course Andrew has the better midsection from the front and the better abs overall. On top of that, the lower body isn't really an advantage for Nick anymore, because even though he has improved his quads, they still remain one of his weaker body parts. He still looks a bit upper body dominant, even with the improvements he has made. But the interesting part is that his abs actually look defined and under control, and that's probably the best news any Nick Walker fan could ask for. He isn't going to beat many top guys in the abs and thighs, especially not someone like Andrew Jacked. However, just like in the previous two front poses that Nick lost, the gap isn't nearly as big as it used to be when his waist wasn't under control. So even though Andrew Jacked wins his third pose in this comparison, I don't think the margin is particularly decisive this time. The score is now 4-3 for Nick, going into the final pose of the matchup. Last pose is the most muscular, and Andrew has improved tremendously in this pose. A couple of years ago, he probably couldn't even dream of challenging someone like Nick Walker here. But now, I'm sure that in the eyes of a lot of fans, he's actually beating Nick in this pose. But for me, Nick is still the more muscular guy. His muscles look cleaner, he's in better condition overall, his shoulders are rounder, his arms are more complete, and his abs look more than decent in the hands clasped variation. Even his quad sweeps look surprisingly good here. Let me know down in the comments who you have winning this pose. For me, it's Nick Walker, and honestly, I don't think it's particularly close. So in the end, Nick Walker wins this comparison 5 poses to 3 against Andrew Jacked. Pretty much the way I expected coming into this video. Now, to be fair, Andrew's 3 wins were probably more dominant than most of Nick's wins, which were definitely much closer and could have gone either way depending on what you value in bodybuilding. And just to be clear, even though I'm a huge Nick Walker fan and he's my favorite bodybuilder competing today, Andrew Jacked is actually my second favorite. So this isn't about trying to put Andrew down or find reasons for Nick to win. It's simply the way I see bodybuilding. To me, the mandatory poses are the foundation of judging. If bodybuilding is the name of the game and winning more mandatory poses is the criteria, then I believe Nick Walker is the better bodybuilder today. But if aesthetics, flow and structure are what matter most to you, then Andrew Jacked is probably your guy, and I completely understand that opinion. As always, let me know who you have winning this comparison down in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.